All right. So today we are actually going to. I'm not going to be afraid to spend more time today. Just going to take little baby steps, at least for the first 2-3 sessions. So today we are going to discuss about the software development methodology. Do you want to see it? We are going to discuss about the software development methodologies. Methodologies or methods. Okay. What do we mean by the software development methodologies or methods? And what are the different methods? Why do we need a method? What is the software method? What is development all about? Now, I think when we spoke yesterday, remember we said that the purpose of developing a software or implementing IT solution is to automate the business process, right? So we identify a business process and we automate the business. That's pretty much the goal of implementing IT solutions. But however, when you're talking about implementing a solution, implementing or developing a software, I think when I was in my college, when it comes to software development, I used to always think that programming, coding is pretty much software development. I used to think that 90% of the whole project is coding. When I say coding, programming. I'm going to talk about this as well, but I was wrong. I'm surprised. Apart from coding, what else would you do? That was always something in my head. But later I realized that it's just 20 to 25% of the whole project. But anyway, I'm going to talk about this. But coming to the point, software development methodology or methods. What is a software development method? A software development method or methodology defines a process or set of steps that need to be followed while implementing a software solution. So when you're trying to develop an IT project, develop a solution, in the process of developing a software solution, you will be following certain set of standards and certain set of processes. And those standards are defined by our software development method. Okay. Now, there are different types of software development methods in the industry. Okay. I'm going to list some of them, some of the most. There are hundreds of them actually. We are not focused on all of them. I'm going to list out some of the most sought methods, and we're going to discuss all of them. Okay. To start with, is the traditional SDLC. Traditional SDLC refers to software development life cycle. Traditional SDLC. Then we also have waterfall model. Waterfall model or methodology. Then RUP model, which is also called as IBM RUP. RUP stands for Rational Unified Process. And we also have Agile, and in Agile we have a category in Agile which is Scrum. So it's a part of Agile part. Okay, so I repeat some of the most software development methodologies in the market are traditional SDLC. SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. Waterfall model, waterfall methodology. RUP model. RUP stands for Rational Unified Process. The reason it's called as IBM RUB because IBM has actually recommended and proposed this process. So the methodology was defined by IBM folks. That's why it's called as IBM RUB. And also, Agile is a very popular software development model these days. And in Agile, there are so many subcategories. But I think Scrum-based model is one of the most popular models which we're going to discuss. And in addition to whatever I have listed here, there are so many other software development methodologies, right? But I don't think I want to discuss all of them because it's not necessary for our class. But I think you should definitely understand all these methods because it's very important that as being a BA or a QA, if you're trying to enter into the IT industry, you should be well versed and thorough with each and every aspect of the software development methodology because this is what you end up learning and doing on a daily basis. You will be pretty much in one of these activities, involved in one of these methodology activities on a daily basis once you start working. So software development, first of all, let me reiterate. Software development methodology is basically a process, an organized process, that you will be following to implement a software solution. In that, when you're trying to develop a software solution, there are different ways of doing it. Traditional SDLC, it has one way of implementing it. It's different patterns, different style of waterfall model is one way, RUP is one way, and Agile is different way. So pretty much there are different models, and each model has a theory as of how you should implement a solution. Okay. Now the question is, why do we need these theories? I mean, why do we have to follow the process, right? Why can't we just develop it? We know what needs to be done. Why don't we go ahead and implement the solution? Right? Why do we need to follow a pattern? Why do we need to follow a methodology? Or why do we need to follow a process? That's most important, right? So when the concept of software development started like 30, 40 years back, when people started understanding how IT is going to bring, a tremendous change, and people started implementing solutions, out of every 100 projects, at least 60 to 70% projects used to fail. The project will fail. When I say fail, what I mean by failure is out of every 100 projects, 70 projects that were developed, first of all, out of these 70, some of them were of no use. I developed software and we spent a lot of time, years of time, millions of dollars, so many resources, and end of the day, I have a product, but this product is of no use. The question is why? Why are we saying that this is not useful? But this process, whatever we have identified and developed, should have probably been done, analysis should have been done on day one. Before you start developing a solution, you should identify what is required. So here, in this context, the business process has not been identified properly. At the end of the day, you're trying to identify the business process and you're implementing a solution to automate the process. But before you start it, you need to identify the right process, what is required. Right? I don't want to implement any and every solution, which doesn't even make sense or is not useful. If I'm spending time and money on this, it should be worth it. So ideally, the analysis should have been done on day one, which did not happen. Number two, there were some projects where the implementation was like 70–80% done, and after implementing 70–80% of the solution, the technology team has identified a roadblock. A roadblock which pretty much is the end of the road. There is no workaround to finish the implementation because the track that they have chosen to get to that stage is a wrong pattern. It's pretty much not the ideal way of implementing the solution. And they have realized this after 70% of implementation, right? This analysis should have been done on day one. Before you start implementing, you have done the analysis rather than blindly, implementing the code or the technology. And also, there are some projects where they were like around 50–60% complete, and just because they did not estimate the budget. Even today, even this happens today. They do not estimate the budget properly, and they start off implementing the solution. After 60% done, oh, you know what, I burned out of the budget. I don't have money. Of course you don't have money because you did not estimate it properly. Right? You have to estimate the tasks, you have to estimate the deliverables, you have to estimate the time, you have to estimate the manpower. Everything you have to properly estimate it on day one rather than just burning out everything and just saying that, okay, you know what, I'm done. I don't have money. So all this analysis, all these things were going wrong because there was no process, there was nothing as a systematic way of implementing. And due to so many reasons, as I just said, there were a lot of projects which have failed. And then people started realizing that, you know what, I think there should be some systematic way. We don't have any process in place. We don't have any, structure way of doing this. I think we should start working on it. Then a lot of organizations started proposing theories. So many theories came, and so many were successful. There were again flaws in those theories. So I think over the period of time, over the past 30–40 years, there were some methodologies which were very successful, and most of the companies started implementing those successful models. Out of those, whatever I have listed here, the traditional SDLC, software development life cycle, waterfall model, IBM-based REP model, which is recommended by IBM, Agile. So I think these are some of the most popular models. There are so many other models like V model and linear model, prototype. There are so many other methodologies, but I don't think I'll be interested in talking all of them, because as a business analyst or a QA, if you understand these models, I think you're good. This is more than enough for you to get started. Okay. Any questions based on my discussion so far? Go ahead.
Yes. So in regards to those models, those typical traditional models that you have there, or I guess those would be the average models that the business requirements may call for in implementing the project. What would be the necessity of all those other models? Like, are there, in essence, what I'm asking is, are there projects wherein the stakeholders may require a specific methodology that's outside of that norm?
Not lately. No. Not lately. I think these days, based on what the clients are asking for, pretty much it could be waterfall or agile, or SDL. Okay. But okay, now the question is, another question that I can ask out of this is, how do you decide which model should be chosen to implement the solution? Because there's a couple of them, right? Now the model that you choose depends on the client's requirement. How the software needs to be delivered, how frequently there are software development. There are so many other factors which dictate the deliverables. But however, I think we will discuss more about this in the coming days. But for now, I think our focus is to understand these methodologies in detail. And I'm going to spend a lot of time on this because understanding this is very, very critical from the BA or a QA standpoint. Okay. So we have folks on the phone.
Yes, Subhash, I have a question here.
Yeah, Neha, go ahead.
So Subhash, speaking about these software development methodologies, you just said that this is decided upon, different factors, but one of the factors is that the client, we're talking about the stakeholders, right? So they are going to dictate which software methodology is to be used in that specific project?
Correct. See, they're not going to directly tell you that, okay, fine, go ahead and use Agile or Waterfall. but they're going to tell you, they're going to give you some ways, they're going to give you the requirements which pretty much will guide you as of which pattern, which method is the best fit for that client. So based on what they're asking for, you will be choosing the methodology.
Okay, so my question here is that, I mean, obviously, they're going to give their requirements, right? And then finally, it is the decision of the stakeholder, it's a word of the stakeholder, or it depends, I mean, the suggestions are also provided by the BA and the project manager as well, that which is going to be the best suited.
I think that the business analyst, I don't think takes any call here, but mostly it's between the stakeholders and the project managers.
Okay.
But I think you will actually know more about this once we start deep diving into the concept.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Rest of the folks, any questions? Okay. I would say it's a no. Okay. So now let's quickly start talking about the first basic model, which is the traditional software development lifecycle. So in the process of implementing the solution using the traditional SDLC, the traditional software development lifecycle recommends certain set of phases, with which you can accomplish your software development. All right. So I'm going to list out all the phases that, when I say phase, steps. So it recommends certain set of steps that need to be followed in a particular way to get your software developed. I'm going to list out all the phases, and we will discuss each and every phase in minute level detail. Okay? Okay, to start with, the first phase is planning and analysis. Then requirements gathering. Then the design, development, testing, go live, followed by go live and production support. Support, or you want to call as maintenance. Okay, so the steps that are implemented as part of the steps or phases that are implemented as part of the traditional SDLC are planning and analysis, number one, followed by requirement gathering, design, development, testing, and go live. And I say go live, promoting it to production to the client, going live. Or I would also say followed by production support and maintenance of the project. So all these are certain set of steps or activities that happen in the project. So with that being said, let me go ahead and start talking about the first phase, which is planning and analysis. Now, in each of these phases, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the milestones accomplished in each phase. When I say milestone, deliverable. You see, the purpose of implementing a phase is to achieve something else, right? We just do it, we don't do it for nothing. So there is some expectation. There are certain set of milestones or artifacts that you may expect for each and every phase. So I'm going to list out all the artifacts or milestones in each and every phase, and we are going to discuss in detail what happens in each phase, and what are the accomplishments in each phase, and what do you do in each phase. Okay. Give me 1 quick second, folks. 1 second. All right, folks, I'm back. So, as I said, I'm going to discuss in detail about each and every phase, milestones and artifacts delivered in each and every phase, followed by the roles and responsibilities of each and every person involved in every milestone, right? As a subject matter expert, as a BA, as a QA, what are you going to do in every phase, every milestone? We'll deep dive into the concept and we will discuss in detail. Okay? All right. So, let me quickly list out some of the milestones accomplished in the planning and analysis. To start with, scope and vision. Scope and vision document. Followed by feasibility analysis. Then risk analysis and mitigation plan. Budget planning, project planning, I think just to name few most important. I repeat some of the milestones that are accomplished as part of your planning and analysis, starting with scope and vision document, feasibility analysis or feasibility study, risk analysis and mitigation planning, budget plan, project plan. I think these are some of the most important milestones that are accomplished at the end of the planning and analysis. Okay. Now, what is planning and analysis? What is the purpose of this planning and analysis phase? Of course, we saw the milestones, but who works on these milestones and who delivers these milestones is something which you need to discuss. The business analyst will talk. Okay. First of all, the purpose of planning and analysis phase is to identify the scope. Identify, when I say scope, identify the business process. See here, what are we trying to do? We are trying to develop a software. Now, when I say develop a software, in other words, we are trying to implement a IT solution, right? So we are trying to identify a business process and we are trying to automate the business process by providing IT solution. That's what we are trying to do, right? But however, in order to perform or in order to implement the IT solution, the first thing that you need to know is, okay, what is the business process? Identifying the business process is the critical aspect. That is the first thing you need to do, right? So here, identification of the business process is documented in scope and vision document. Okay? A scope and vision document is a document which captures, identifies, and defines the business process. So this is also called as scope definition. Identification of business process that need to be automated is also called as scope definition. Okay, so we clearly identify and document what is in scope for the project. And also, when we start documenting the scope, we also clearly document what is out of scope. So here what I'm saying is, right, I'm identifying the business process, but what I'm also saying is, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is the business process, and this is what I'm going to implement. But however, I'm also saying that, okay, I'm not going to give this to you. I'm going to implement 10 things. But when I'm implementing 10 things, these 3 things or 3 features will not be delivered. Why should I say this? Why should I mention explicitly that I'm not going to deliver some business process? Because there is very likely, or there is a possibility that the stakeholders may come up with assumptions. They may assume that, okay, if you're delivering this item, then probably I think you're also going to deliver the other items also. I'll give you a simple example just to make it very clear. For instance, let us say the scope is to develop a banking portal, banking website, right? So the client or the stakeholder is asking to develop a web-based banking portal, and let us say one of the features which is in scope is transfer funds, right? Funds transfer. So the client is saying that, you know what, you have to actually give us a capability of funds transfer. And okay, fine, we are going to allow the users to transfer funds. But however, for this project, if you are actually implementing a solution to give the capability to the client to transfer funds only within the same bank, you need to mention very clearly that the scope of this project is funds transfer within the bank, and out of scope is any external transfers is out of scope. You need to mention very clear, because if I make a simple statement saying that, okay, I'm going to give you funds transfer, out of this statement, I can actually make 3 assumptions, right? I can assume that you are allowing me to transfer internally, right, within the bank. You are allowing me to transfer the funds externally outside the bank. Number 3, I can also make an assumption that you are allowing me to transfer funds internationally, outside the country also. So I can make 3, as a stakeholder, I can make 3 assumptions. Just if you are telling me that you are going to give me funds transfer. But however, if the scope of the project is only to develop internal funds transfer, I'm going to make it very clear that as part of funds transfer, internal transfers is in scope, in the sense whoever is trying to transfer within the bank, within the same organization, they will be able to transfer funds. But however, external transfers outside the bank and international transfers are out of scope. Because I don't want to make them have any assumptions at all. I'm going to rule out the possibility of any assumption. So wherever there is a possibility of clients making assumptions, I'm going to rule them out, and I'm going to make it very clear that they are out of scope. Now you understand why this is so important, right? In scope and out of scope. Any questions so far? Folks on the phone? All right. Now we know what the purpose of scope definition, because we need to identify and clearly log down. See, again, what happens is the stakeholders or the client, whoever is asking for automating this business process, there is very likely possibility that they keep adding more and more items to the scope. Yeah, today You meet and say, you know what, as part of this process, okay, these are the business processes that need to be automated. But after 1 week or 2 weeks, you come back and ask, you know what, I think it's nice to have a couple more added. Oh, you know what, next week I'll have some more added. But there should be a limit on what you're asking for. You can ask everything, but you ain't getting everything. There is a limit on what the technology team can do. So there should be a clear definition, as of what is going to be delivered and when is it going to be delivered. So that definition is captured in the scope and vision document. Also, this pretty much sets the expectations clearly. And a scope and vision document is a document which clearly outlines the boundary, as of what is going to be delivered and what is not going to be delivered. Neha or Cody or anybody has questions?
No, Subhash, I'm good for now.
Anybody else on the call has a question? I'm assuming you are able to hear me properly and also you're able to see my screen. If you have any challenges in either of these, always feel free to let me know right away. All right. Now, moving to the next one, feasibility analysis. What is feasibility analysis? Now, before we actually start talking about feasibility analysis, couple of things. Scope and vision. Who defines the scope? Number one. Who documents the scope? Number two. I think these are very important things that you need to do. And we understand what is scope and we understand what the scope definition means. Understand the importance of it. But the question is, who is going to define the scope? Who is going to say that, okay, these are the business processes, we should automate them? Who is going to say that? The scope definition is dictated by the subject matter experts or the client. Always. I repeat, the scope definition is dictated by the subject matter experts. Now, question number two. Who is documenting the scope and vision? The scope and vision, depending on the customer, depending on the client location, there could be two possibilities. Number one, I have seen stakeholders or clients who actually document the scope and vision, but however, it is very likely that as a business analyst, you will also be involved in documenting the scope and vision. Now, let's make it very clear. You are not going to define the scope. Your role is only limited to documenting the scope. Now, as a business analyst, you will probably attending the meetings, the subject matter experts will be dictating the requirements and you will be documenting the requirements, especially the scope and vision. I'm going to discuss about a lot of milestones and artifacts in the session. Now, how do you document? If you're a BA, how do you document? Where do you document? Is there a format? The answer is yes. Every client will have their own set of documentation standards. For example, as a business analyst, if I have to document a business requirement document, a scope and vision, right? My job is to document. I'm already talking to the stakeholders and I'm gathering information. Now I have to document it somewhere. So every client will have a predefined template, a format where the scope and vision needs to be documented. So all you're going to do is pick up the template, fill in the blanks. You're not going to decide the template, because at this point, every customer, every client, whoever is implementing IT, they already have well-defined standards. In place. All you got to do is fill in the blanks. Okay? So you don't have to worry about inventing stuff. All I'm going to do is sit with the people and identify the information and document the information. Oh. And obviously here we are going to learn how to document. That's the goal. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk about, as I said, I'm going to talk about a lot of different milestones. And I'm going to show you each and every milestone. We'll see some samples, we'll take some projects, and we'll also document those.
Subhash, sorry to interrupt, but I have a question here. So are there any specific tools required to, document the scope, or, right now, we're using Word, or, specific tools are used?
Very good question. At least so far, based on whatever we discussed, the only tool that you are going to use is Microsoft Office. And to be precise, scope definition, probably you may document it in Microsoft Word or Excel, either of them. Most likely Word.
Okay.
That leads to my next question.
Uh-huh.
So in the Microsoft Office 2013, it is by default, whenever you send an email on the receiving end, you receive it in the protected view. So let's just say, for instance, they sent out the documentation for that particular scope and vision, and then you're going through the steps of filling in the blank, as you said. So then you have to go into, of course, disabling the protected view so you can edit the document and then return it back to the client.
See, these templates, they will be uploaded. These templates will be available in some place where you can actually pick up a template and start filling it. So somebody will tell you where to find it. So everything is pretty much, and if somebody is not giving it, go ask. It's your right to know it. So it doesn't mean that you don't know it.
Okay, Subhash, sorry to interrupt. I have another question as well. So apart from this, we're saying that it says that we need to define a scope, and as a BA, you just have to, search for the template and just start filling the details. So are there any substructures, subheadings apart from the scope, or it just says the template for the scope and you start defining it?
It won't say a template for a scope. It may say, again, depending on the client and depending on the process that they follow, it may say scope definition, scope and vision definition. It could be named differently, right? Okay. It could say project summary, project vision. It could have 100 different names, but the definition meaning is the same.
Okay, so my question here is, like we were just talking about, like the milestones in planning and analysis, right? So we're defining different steps here. So the scope and vision is just one thing, right? We're not going into other details into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not talking about it. We're not even starting.
Subhash, I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead. Mohini, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm Mohini.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the scope and vision document the same as the requirement document, business requirement document?
No. Scope and vision document has nothing to do with business requirement. It's separate. They are different. Scope definition is different. Business requirement documents is different. I'm going to talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
I would say, just to answer the question for now, scope and vision document is a high-level requirement document, and the business requirement document is low-level.
Okay.
I'll talk about it when we speak about requirement gathering. There's still a lot to come. Don't worry.
Okay.
We haven't even started. Yeah, Neha, are you still having any open questions?
I'm sorry about that.
No. We want this interactive. You don't have to.
Definitely. I just clicked on that tab and I forgot to just do that. Sorry.
Okay. No, I think it's good that you're asking questions. I definitely recommend all of you, whenever you think you are getting derailed, whenever you think you need, we have more clarification. I think everybody, no matter when, you should stop me, you should ask me a question, and it should be more interactive. And I just don't like to be speaking all the time. It should be more interactive. That's how we learn a lot. All right. Now, so moving to the feasibility analysis. Right? So what is feasibility analysis? Who performs the feasibility analysis? And what are different aspects of feasibility analysis? These are some things which you need to know. Anybody can answer about feasibility study? Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, in defining feasibility, is that basically is this particular scope and vision feasible for the end result? And in between that, there are people who have to come in, do the required testing to find out, or research to find out if it's
not. Don't say testing.
Okay, research. Okay. That's basically where I'm at.
Right. Yeah, I think what you said is right. Okay, so feasibility analysis. Now at this point, we already have identified the scope. We said, okay, these are the business process and we need to automate. But the question is it really feasible? Is it really worth it? When I say feasibility study, I'm talking about the worth. Is it worth spending so much time and money on this automation of business process? What is the advantage? What are the benefits from the cost perspective? What are the returns from the business perspective? Whether it is really feasible, is it really possible to automate the solution at all? If yes, what are the challenges? How do we implement it? From the budget perspective, if I'm spending $1 million on this project, what is that I should expect? What is the returns that I'm expecting? Will I be able to get the returns? Will I be able to get the job done? Is it really worth it? Is it really feasible from the business perspective to spend $1 million on this project? Because if I'm not getting enough returns on the money and time that I'm spending, then why would I do it? Right? So all these are some things which are analyzed as part of your feasibility analysis. Now, the question is, who performs the feasibility study? Who do you think performs the feasibility study?
The business analyst?
No, the business analyst will not be involved in the feasibility study. The feasibility study is actually performed by the subject matter experts. Folks, you have to excuse me for a second. Give me one quick second. I'm sorry. So the feasibility analysis, as I said, is actually performed by the subject matter experts. Because see, as a business analyst, you're not a subject matter expert. So you do not know the business. You are not the right person to come up with the feasibility. That's not your skill set. Because the subject matter experts are the experts who are defining the business, identifying the process, and they are the ones who are deciding what to be automated, what not to be automated. But before they do that, they also perform the feasibility study.
So right now, scope and feasibility is done by
feasibility, yes, scope definition and the feasibility analysis study is pretty much done by the subject matter experts. But however, when it comes to documentation of scope and vision, as a BA, yes, you may be involved. Most likely you may be. You will be. Okay. Now, as part of the feasibility study, there is one study that you may also be performing. It's called as SWOT analysis. SWOT. S for Sam, W for whiskey, O for orange, T for Tom. So as part of the feasibility study, one kind of theory that is analyzed is the SWOT analysis. SWOT, SWOT analysis. Now, what is SWOT analysis? SWOT analysis stands for strengths, identifying the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. SWOT. Now, when the subject matter experts start analyzing the feasibility, the first thing that they need to understand is, okay, based on the business process that we have identified, what are the strengths of the organization that are going to add value to this project? What is our strength? See, I'm trying to come up with new ideas. I'm trying to automate new process. Okay? But however, from the organization perspective, what are the strengths that are going to help us, accomplish this? What is the value add from the organization perspective? What are the strengths that we can utilize, from the organization perspective? Right? Weakness. What are the different weaknesses of the organization? How is the reputation of the company? If I'm launching a new product, how is the company reputation, going to impact on the product? So what are the different weakness areas? What are the opportunities? What are the business opportunities? If the company has a good brand logo, for example, if Polo already has a brand logo, if they're trying to launch a product, they already have opportunities in the market because they have their brand image. Right? Threats. What are the different threats? Who are the different competitors? For example, if Apple is launching a product, obviously they need to think about other competitors, like the Android phones, Samsung are the competitors. So they need to also think, about what is the other company who is a major competitor working on, and how are they working? Are they going to give us a better product rather than what you're providing at the same price? So they need to think all these factors before they launch a product. Right? Because it's a competitive market, it's a cutthroat market, and unless you are delivering the best, you cannot survive in the market. So even when iPhone or Samsung, they launch products, there's a lot of research. They always study each other. Sometimes I think even Apple has filed a complaint that Samsung has copied some of the features. So again, they pretty much go hand in hand, and a lot of analysis happens. And end of the day, the goal is to make sure that they perform the analysis of feasibility, whether it is really feasible, not only from the budget perspective, but also from different areas, especially by performing the SWOT analysis. Question?
Hello.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, Subhash. This is Mohin. We are discussing SDLC, software development lifecycle, as part of IT company or IT firm. So SWOT analysis are done by SME, like they are not related to IT company or this thing, right? So why do we need to learn about SWOT analysis? Because it's not part of SDLC, I think.
I'm sorry, come again. What did you say? I'm not able to hear.
No, the SWOT analysis or the feasibility analysis is done by subject matter experts.
Correct.
So they were out of software industry, like they were the business opportunity. So as a BA, we are related to SDLC or guiding the software development lifecycle or how to implement it. But these analysis and all, it's not related to the IT industry, I guess. I mean, like it's
no. I don't want to say that it's not related to the IT industry. I mean, before we automate the process, we need to perform all this analysis, right? Without the analysis being complete, you cannot initiate and you cannot go to the next level. You need to complete it. Of course, I mean, a business analyst is not involved, but just because the BA is not involved doesn't mean that it's not related to IT. Both of them go hand in hand, right? If the business has to have something automated, they have to perform the analysis, then it gets into the IT department as well. I agree. But pretty much all these things are happening in the planning and analysis phase. Of course, I mean the process initiation has not started yet. That's the reason all this is the very beginning. This is very beginning at the beginning stage. Yeah, of course. I mean, I agree that there is no technology implementation as of now because the technical team did not even jump in. Yeah, in that terms, I agree that there is no technology role here, but at the same time, without this analysis, the other part, which is technical implementation, will not start. Yeah, and I also agree that a BA will not be playing any role in this phase at all. But this is still part of your development life cycle. You have to have the analysis completed, then you can start. It's all interrelated and tied together.
Okay.
All right. Now, coming to the next one, risk analysis and mitigation plan. What is a risk analysis and what is the mitigation plan? So now we also identified the scope. We have identified whether it's feasible or not. Once we are comfortable, then pretty much the next step is the risk analysis. Now we have decided that, okay, fine, this is feasible. Okay. Now if the decision is negative, let's say if the outcome of the feasibility analysis is negative, then the project will be halted. The process will not go to the next level. Now here, the next part is the risk analysis. Now, as part of the risk analysis, again, the subject matter experts will step up and try to identify what are the potential risks that the project may go through in this whole process. From the budget perspective, if the project needs $1 million, do we have that money? Are we in a risk of running out of budget? Right? Are we in risk of some potential competitor? What if a competitor is also working on similar lines of product down the lane? How do we handle it? So we identify, the subject matter experts or the business users identify all the potential risks involved in this implementation, and for each risk, they also try to come up with a mitigation plan. We know these are the risks, but if I run into this challenge, how do I handle it? Right? What is the mitigation plan? How do I mitigate and minimize? Of course, I may not be able to eliminate the risk, but I should have a plan with which I should be able to mitigate, or probably I should be able to overcome the challenge. So all those documentation is done. Again, analysis and documentation is performed by the subject matter experts. Usually, the documentation, analysis, everything in terms of feasibility study and in terms of risk analysis is performed by the pretty much the planning, as you said, planning analysis is pretty much is more or less dictated by the subject matter experts and the end users. Yes.
My question is, so if the feasibility analysis and the risk analysis and mitigation plans are done by the subject matter expert, what are we documenting? The reason why I'm asking is because if they're already presenting it to you, then all you basically have to do on your end, I would assume, is to translate that.
So what happens is, if you have to document any of this scope and vision or feasibility or risk, I think as a business analyst, your role is to be sitting in the meeting, listening to what they're talking about, organizing the information in a document, hand it over.
So how do they communicate that? The attendees, how do they communicate? Is it like a PowerPoint document, a Word document? That's what I'm saying. So if
how do they communicate? Yeah. Good question. So the question is, how do the subject matter experts communicate with the BA? Yeah, it could be a PowerPoint presentation. I would be happy if somebody is giving me a PowerPoint presentation, which probably is not possible. But again, there are different ways. They get together in a meeting, they start talking, and as a BA, you just make running notes and you gather it and you actually organize it. I would be happy if somebody gives me in writing.
Right.
It depends again, and I've seen some stakeholders, they actually document their own stuff.
Okay.
They don't ask you, so you may not be involved in documentation. But you need to know what's going on. You need to know what is in scope, because you will pretty much be taking over in the next phase of requirements gathering.
Okay.
So, but you pretty much should be aware of what's going on, what is in scope, what are they talking about, what are the challenges they're discussing. You will be pretty much familiar with what's going on. You should be familiar with what's going on.
This is why you were saying earlier or yesterday that you have to learn to become a good listener.
Yes.
Okay.
Good listening skills are important for the BA.
Okay.
Yeah. Very true. And that was one of the biggest challenge for me as a BA. I was never paying attention to any of my classes, back in school or college. Most of the time I was always a self-learner.
Oh.
To me, classes were really boring.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have. I'm always a fun kind of person. Always have fun in the class, and pretty much just before the exams, a day or two, just mug up stuff and get the job done.
Right.
That's how it works. Anyway. All right. So when it comes to feasibility, as I said, one of the feasibility and risk analysis, both these are performed by the stakeholders and the experts, and they will be pretty much documenting it, and if required, you may also be involved in documentation. Okay. Now, next one. So once they decide that the project is feasible, once they define the project scope, once they define the feasibility and also are done with the risk analysis, and if they figure out that fine, this is really worth it, then the next step is estimating the budget. Fine, we have identified these are the different processes that need to be automated, but the question is, how much money? How much money is required to implement this solution? Right? Now here, the technology team will jump into the picture. Okay? That is, from the technology side, the technical manager or the project manager will review the scope and vision, and based on the scope definition, they will give a budget estimate. This budget estimate is called as the first estimate, initial estimate provided by the technology manager is called as L0 estimate, level 0. L0 estimate is a high level budget estimate which gives a ballpark budget required for the project to be implemented. I repeat, L0 estimate is basically a high level estimate which is provided by the technology manager in order to deliver the scope that has been asked by the stakeholders. Okay. Now the stakeholders look at the budget estimate, and again they come back and say, you know what, I think you're asking for too much. It happens. This bargaining is also in IT industry is no different, right? Yep. So what happens is now the technology team, the business users say, you know what, I think you're asking for too much. Why do you think you would need $1 million to implement this? Right? Give me some more details. Give me a breakup. Right? So the breakup is given in another estimate which is called as L1 estimate. L1 estimate is the low level estimate. So a low level estimate pretty much will give a detailed picture, a breakdown about all the items and the price. Kind of a detailed breakup of price. That's all you need to know.
You say breakup, you mean like breakdown?
Breakdown, yes.
Okay.
Breakdown of price. So L0 is a high level estimate. L1 is a low level budget estimate. And again, who is going to perform this? The project manager. A business analyst will not be involved in budget planning. Unless until you are a BA, working with a client for like 8-10 years, they will not put the budget in your hand. So you don't have to worry about it. They ain't trusting you, at least on day one. All right. So again, once they negotiate, and even here, if they have a disagreement with the budget, there are a lot of projects which go on halt because they don't come to an agreement. Every now and then you may hear the project has been halted because there is no budget.
Subhash,
yeah, go ahead, Neha.
I have a question here. Subhash, so I mean, as we are going through these steps, I mean, initially we said that the scope and vision is the first document we define, right? So, I mean, when the scope and vision is defined, do we not share that, document with the technical team in order to prepare themselves beforehand for the budget? Or,
No.
I mean,
No. What happens is, see, when I have a scope defined, first of all, I also need to analyze whether it is feasible or not, right? Without performing a feasibility analysis, what is the point of giving this to the technology team? It doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Right? So that's the reason why things pretty much are even may stop once it gets to the budget planning.
Budget planning. Okay. So, I mean, in terms of, correct me if I'm not, if I'm wrong somewhere. So, I just want to visualize the whole process in my mind. So we are starting with the scope and vision, right? And then, how does this process actually work? So it's working, I documented the scope and vision, and then I will be a part of meeting where the feasibility analysis, the risk analysis, and the budget planning is performed. But I might
you may not be
playing.
See, as a BA, you may not be involved in all these phases at all.
Okay.
You may not be involved in feasibility. You may not be involved in risk or budget planning. That's not your area. We are discussing everything because we need to know the process.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Yeah. The most importantly, scope and vision. Yes, you may be involved.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay.
My question was pertaining to the goal. Is that if there's a go between, of course, with the SMEs and the SMEs and the stakeholders involved in the risk analysis, budget planning, then where does that leave us? Are we just, sitting and just getting paid just until they can keep smooth out all of the keys?
They will not hire you until they have a scope defined.
Oh.
Folks, are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, Subhash, I'm able to hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. You cut out for a minute there, but I came back.
You said earlier that with the scope and vision document and the feasibility analysis as well as risk management that we're documenting.
Correct.
So we're working.
Okay. Now, the possibility of you getting involved in the feasibility analysis and risk analysis,
but I'm saying even documenting with
could be.
Okay.
Could be.
Okay.
Could be. Now, let us say if you do not get involved in documenting feasibility analysis and risk analysis, the question is, what am I doing as a BA? There will be a lot of other projects, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
At one point, there is not one project. You may be working on multiple projects.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry, they'll utilize the best out of it. Okay. Project planning pretty much is very simple and straightforward. Once they define the project scope, pretty much you are going to identify all the tasks that need to be accomplished as part of the scope, and then pretty much document all the tasks, identify the resources who are going to work on the task, and make sure that you have a start date and end date for the project. Pretty much everything is part of the planning. I think we'll discuss more on detail in next week about the next set of steps. I think I want to stop the class here for today. I want to take slow and easy steps so that it's not overwhelming. But I think this is a detailed class that we'll continue next Saturday.
Subhash, I just have one question before we leave or end the class.
Yeah, go ahead.
Subhash, I mean, all these steps. So generally, how much? I mean, months, or I should say, obviously, a couple of months it must be taking, right, to jotting down all these. The scope and vision and the feasibility and everything.
It depends on how big and how complex the business process is. For example,
Okay.
if it's just a small business process, maybe it'll take even if 1 week or 1 day is also good enough. So it depends on what you're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be a day, a month, 2 months, 2 years also.
Okay.
You never know.
I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Like your drug safety, when before they, manufacture the drugs, it actually takes 10 to 15 years to work on it.
Yeah.
We don't realize that. Yeah. It takes 10 to 15 years before it actually gets to the common man.
Yeah.
So you never know. Obviously she is an expert, pharmacy expert. You know it better.
Okay, so Subhash, another question which I have is that you also told us that there can be an approach, just a scenario, where stakeholders themselves define the scope, right? And they don't want, they themselves define. So in that situation, how do we proceed? So we are just provided with the definition of the scope?
You pretty much, you identify all the items in the scope and you document it. Yeah, the scope definition is documented in the scope and vision document. Yes.
Okay.
We'll see. I'll show you some documents. I think that will get you clear picture.
Okay. Thank you.
I think for now, pretty much all you need to understand is about the scope definition.
Okay.
Anybody else on the phone have any questions?
Yes, I did have a question since all the scope question has come up.
Yeah, go ahead.
How often or how common is it, since a lot of these projects you mentioned are long-term, does the scope change in that your example with the banking transfers?
Very likely. It is very likely. See, scope, that's the reason we say scope changes, do happen. Every now and then the stakeholders keep coming and asking for updates in the scope. Whether we accept the scope changes, whether we decline, everything again is on demand and depends on the project and situation. I'm also going to talk about this in detail. But however, I think there is definitely a possibility that stakeholders come back every often and they may ask for changes, additions or decrease in the scope. It is likely.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Right. All right, folks, if you don't have any questions, then I think I'm done for today. I will see you next week. Next week, I think I want to meet you at 9 o'clock. I also have another batch which probably I'm planning to finish. So the schedule for next, most likely it will be 9 Eastern time. But by Thursday, I will publish the timeline. Okay? But I think for you, pretty much you should be prepared to attend the class at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Okay? We'll publish the meeting links, and I think you also. How many of you have already registered with us? I know Neha is already registered. Mohini and Cody, did you already register with us?
No, Subhash, I have to register. Can you please send the link way to register?
Oh, okay. So I think somebody from our team will follow up with you on Monday. And they'll walk you through the registration process, and you'll get access to the blog. I think I already gave you the blog walkthrough, so you'll get access to the blog and everything, by Monday.
Oh, yes, I'll be registering tomorrow as well.
Oh, okay, great, excellent. All right, folks. Then I look forward to talk to you in the next week, and eventually, in between, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I know you have been talking to different members from my team. I think Rose and Lisa and Ajay. There's a couple of folks who are helping me in the coordination. So talk to them. Make sure you register. Make sure you get the blog access, because all the videos, in the classes are available on the blog. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you very much for attending the class. I will look forward to Saturday at 9 o'clock Eastern time in the morning. Thank you. Bye.